The galaxy had rules. Ancient rules. Unwritten, but obeyed by all. The strong ruled. The weak survived, or they didn't. For millions of years, civilizations rose from dust and reached for the stars. Some burned bright. Most were extinguished. Those that endured learned one truth above all others. Power was everything. There was no justice among the stars. No fairness. No mercy. Only hierarchy. At the center of this order stood the Dominion Ascendancy. They were not the oldest species in the galaxy, but they were the most feared. Their fleets stretched across entire sectors. Their warships were the size of cities. Their soldiers were engineered for one purpose, victory. No one challenged them. No one survived if they did. Entire civilizations had vanished for lesser offenses than defiance. Planets stripped. Stars claimed. Species reduced to servants. And the galaxy accepted it. Because resistance was extinction. Because hope was a luxury no one could afford. The Galactic Assembly existed, of course. A gathering of species, diplomats, traders. They spoke of peace. They signed treaties. They pretended the system was fair. But everyone knew the truth. The Assembly did not rule the galaxy. Fear did. And the Dominion owned it. Then, something new appeared. At first, it was nothing. A faint signal at the edge of mapped space. Primitive transmissions. Chaotic. Emotional. Loud. The kind of noise young species always made when they first touched the stars. Most ignored it. Some laughed. A few traders marked the coordinates, curious about what resources might be found there once the species inevitably collapsed or was absorbed. It was just another beginning. Another short story waiting to end. The system was unremarkable. A yellow star. 8 planets. One of them alive. Oceans. Forests, weather patterns still unstable. A world that had not yet learned its place. They called it Earth. Its people called themselves human. The first contact did not come from war. It came from accident. A small human vessel, barely more than a metal shell with engines, drifted too far from its mapped routes. Its navigation failed. Its crew panicked. Its distress signal echoed into the dark. And something answered. A merchant vessel from the Loran Trade Guild intercepted the signal. The Loran were cautious by nature. They did not conquer. They did not fight unless forced. They survived by understanding danger before it arrived. When they saw the human ship, they expected desperation, fear, submission. Instead, they found curiosity. The humans asked questions. Too many questions. About hyperspace. About trade routes. About the assembly. About power. The Loran captain warned them. Carefully. Repeatedly. You are young, he told them. You are weak. The galaxy is not kind to species like yours. He explained the order of things. The Dominion. The hierarchy. The cost of being noticed. Find protection, he advised. Offer tribute. Align yourselves with someone stronger. That is how you survive. The humans listened. They recorded everything. They thanked him. And then they asked one final question. What happens if we don't? The captain paused. Because no one asked that question. Not anymore. Then you will be taught, he said quietly. Or you will be erased. The humans were silent for a moment. Then one of them smiled. It wasn't fear. It wasn't submission. It was something else. Yeah, the human said softly, almost to himself. We've heard that before. The Loran captain did not understand. But something about the way the human said it made him uneasy. Deeply uneasy. Because it did not sound like ignorance. It sounded like experience. And experience, in a species this young, was dangerous. The humans repaired their ship. They mapped their way home. And before they left, they sent one final message. Thanks for the warning. The transmission ended. The Loran captain watched their ship disappear into the void. For a long time, he said nothing. Then he gave an order. Mark that system, he said. Why? His officer asked. The captain's gaze remained fixed on the empty space where the human ship had been. Because I think, he said slowly, we are going to hear about them again. He didn't know how right he was. Because back on that small blue world, something had already begun. Not panic. Not fear. Preparation. Humanity had looked at the stars. And for the first time, the stars had looked back. And neither side understood yet that everything was about to change. Humanity did not panic. They did not send messages of surrender. They did not search for protectors. They did not ask for permission. They got to work. The information brought back by that single drifting ship spread across Earth faster than anything in human history. Governments argued. Leaders debated. Experts warned of extinction, of overwhelming forces beyond comprehension. Some called for caution. Some called for isolation. Some called for immediate submission. But humanity had always been divided. And yet, when faced with something truly unknown, something truly dangerous, they did what they always did. They competed. Nations raced to build better ships. Corporations fought to control off-world resources. Scientists pushed theories that had once been considered impossible. Progress did not happen slowly. It accelerated. Within 10 years, humanity had established its first permanent colony beyond Earth. A barren world, harsh and unforgiving, but rich in minerals. They named it Horizon. Within 20 years, there were 5. Within 30, 12. Each colony was different. Some focused on industry. Some on research. Some on survival alone. But all of them shared one thing. They were growing. Fast. Faster than any species the galaxy had seen in a very long time. The Lorin noticed first. Their traders passed through human space occasionally, always cautious, always observing. What they saw made them uneasy. Human ships were still small. Still inefficient. Still crude compared to the standards of the wider galaxy. But there were more of them. Every year, more. Their routes expanded. Their stations multiplied. Their technology improved, not steadily, but sharply. Humans did not evolve like other species. They leaped. And they were not afraid. They traded with anyone willing. They experimented constantly. They ignored warnings that would have stopped any other young civilization. They did not behave like prey. They behaved like something that had not yet accepted its place. Reports reached the Galactic Assembly. At first, they were dismissed. A minor species. Another short-lived expansion. They will learn. But not everyone was convinced. Because there was a pattern. Every species that had ever entered the galaxy followed the same path. Caution. Submission. Alignment. Humanity followed none of them. And that made them visible. Far earlier than they should have been. Deep within Dominion-controlled space, the first official report was delivered. It was not considered urgent. At least, not at first. The chamber was vast. Dark metal walls. A ceiling that stretched beyond sight. At its center stood a projection. Human space. Small. Insignificant. Barely a fraction of known territory. They expand quickly, the observer said. One of the Dominion commanders studied the display. His form was massive, his presence heavy with quiet authority. All species expand, he replied. This one does not slow. A pause. That is irrelevant. They do not respond to warnings. That drew attention. Slowly, the commander turned. Explain. They have been contacted, the observer continued. Indirectly. Through traders. Through neutral parties. They have been informed of protocol. And they do not comply. The room grew slightly quieter. Not tense. Not yet. But attentive. They have not paid tribute. They have not requested protection. They do not acknowledge the hierarchy. The commander stared at the projection. A small blue system. A handful of colonies. Nothing. And yet, they are ignorant, he said finally. That was our first assumption. And now? The observer hesitated. They are aware. Silence. Not long. But enough. And still, the commander said slowly, They refuse. Yes. A low murmur passed through the chamber. Not fear. Confusion. Because this did not happen. Not anymore. Every species learned. Every species adapted. Every species survived by understanding its place. Defiance was rare. And when it appeared, it did not last. Then they will be corrected, the commander said. The matter should have ended there. It almost did. But one final detail was added. They are improving, the observer said. At a rate we cannot accurately predict. That earned a pause. A small one. But real. Define improving. They adapt technology rapidly. They modify existing systems beyond expected limits. Their development curve does not match standard models. The commander's eyes narrowed slightly. Are they a threat? No. The answer came quickly. Too quickly. And yet, it was still true. By every measurable standard, humanity was weak. Their ships could not withstand real combat. Their weapons were inefficient. Their defenses were minimal. Against even a minor Dominion patrol, they would fall. Easily. They are irrelevant, the commander concluded. The projection flickered. Decision made. Interest lost. And yet, as the chamber cleared, the observer remained for a moment longer. Watching the small blue system. Watching the expanding web of human colonies. Watching something that did not behave correctly. Not like prey. Not like servants. Something else. Something unfinished. Far from the Dominion, far from the Assembly, far from the eyes that would one day turn toward them. Humanity continued. They built. They expanded. They argued. They pushed forward with a kind of reckless determination that had carried them from caves to cities, from cities to orbit, from orbit to the stars. They were not the strongest. Not the smartest. Not the most advanced. But they were something the galaxy did not fully understand. Because while other species sought stability, humans thrived in chaos. And deep beneath the surface of their worlds, beneath cities, beneath oceans, beneath layers of rock and steel, projects began. Quietly. Without announcement. Without explanation. Facilities that did not appear on any official records. Research that was not shared with allies. Questions that did not have safe answers. Because somewhere in the back of humanity's mind, there was a single thought. A simple one. If the galaxy ran on power, then they would need more of it. Much more. And they were willing to do whatever it took to get it. The first official contact did not come with diplomacy. It came with a demand. The Dominion did not rush. They never rushed. For them, time was a resource they possessed in abundance. Entire civilizations could rise and fall in the span of what they considered a minor delay. But defiance, even small defiance, had to be addressed. Not immediately, but inevitably. The fleet they sent was not large by their standards. 5 warships. That was all. 5 vessels capable of reducing entire planetary defenses to ash. 5 symbols of authority that had ended countless rebellions before they had even begun. They did not announce their arrival. They did not request permission. They simply appeared. At the edge of the horizon system, the first human colony. The human sensors detected them instantly. Unknown signatures. Massive energy readings. Objects too large to be anything but warships. Alarms spread across the colony network. Stations went on alert. Civilian ships were recalled. Military vessels, what few there were, scrambled into defensive positions. They were not prepared. They knew it. But they moved anyway. Because that was what humans did. The Dominion ships advanced slowly. Deliberately. A display of control. Of inevitability. They stopped just outside orbital range. And then, they spoke. The transmission cut through every human channel at once. Clear. Precise. Unmistakable. This system now falls under Dominion authority. No introduction. No negotiation. Cease all expansion. Surrender all military assets. Prepare tribute shipments. A pause. You have 1 hour to comply. The message ended. Silence followed. Not the silence of confusion. The silence of calculation. Across horizon, leaders gathered. Military commanders. Scientists. Civilian authorities. Arguments began immediately. We can't fight them. That's obvious. Then we comply. No. The word cut through the room. Sharp. Final. All eyes turned. The speaker was not a general. Not a politician. Just a representative from Earth. One of many voices sent to oversee the expansion effort. They don't know us, she said. They don't need to. They think we'll fold. And we will. Or we die. A pause. She shook her head. That's the problem. Silence again. Because everyone in that room understood something uncomfortable. They had been here before. Not with aliens. Not with fleets in orbit. But with each other. Human history was filled with moments like this. Moments where someone stronger demanded submission. Moments where the weak were told to accept their place. And sometimes, they did. But not always. What happens if we say no? Someone asked quietly. No one answered immediately. Because they all knew the answer. But one of them said it anyway. They destroy us. Another voice followed. And if we say yes? A longer silence. They own us. That settled it. Not logically. Not strategically. But emotionally. And humans, for all their advancements, still made decisions that way. The hour passed quickly. On the Dominion flagship, the commander waited. There was no tension. No uncertainty. This was routine. A small species. A simple correction. He had overseen dozens of these operations. They always ended the same way. Submission. Compliance. Order restored. The timer reached 0. A signal appeared. Incoming transmission. He allowed himself a moment before responding. Just enough to let the silence stretch. To remind them who was in control. Then he opened the channel. The human appeared on screen. Not armored. Not posturing. Calm. This is Horizon Command, she said. We have received your message. The commander said nothing. Waiting. We understand your demands. Still nothing. And our answer is. A brief pause. Just a fraction of a second. No. Silence. Real silence this time. Not calculated. Not controlled. Unexpected. The commander studied the human. Waiting for clarification. For correction. It did not come. Instead, the human continued. This system is under human jurisdiction. You are trespassing. Withdraw immediately. The words were simple. The tone was steady. And that was the problem. Because there was no fear in it. No hesitation. Just certainty. The commander felt something unfamiliar. Not anger. Not yet. Something closer to disbelief. You do not understand the situation, he said. We understand it perfectly. You are outmatched. Yes. Another pause. You will be destroyed. Probably. That was new. The commander's voice lowered slightly. Then why resist? For the first time, the human hesitated. Just a little. Then she answered. Because that's what we do. The transmission ended. The commander stared at the empty screen. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, he smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Interesting, he said quietly. Around him, his officers waited. Prepare weapons, he ordered. No warnings. No delay. His gaze returned to the projection of the human colony. They have chosen. Outside, in the cold silence of space, the Dominion warships powered their weapons. Energy built. Targeting systems locked. Below them, Horizon continued to move. Ships repositioned. Defenses activated. Evacuation protocols initiated. They were not ready. They knew it. But they did not run. Because somewhere, deep in the core of what made them human, there was a refusal. A refusal to bow. A refusal to accept. A refusal to be what the galaxy expected them to be. The first shot was fired without ceremony. A beam of light crossed the void. And Horizon burned. The beam struck without warning. There was no time to react. No time to adapt. One moment, Horizon existed. The next, it didn't. The orbital defense grid vanished first. Stations that had taken decades to build were erased in seconds. Metal, energy, life, gone before anyone could even register the impact. Then came the surface. Cities dissolved into fire. Shockwaves rolled across continents, tearing structures apart like they were made of sand. Oceans boiled at the edges where the energy touched. Atmosphere ignited in streaks of light that carved across the sky. 3 million people lived on Horizon. Most of them never saw it coming. Emergency signals flooded every channel. Distress calls. Evacuation orders. Fragments of voices cut off mid-sentence. Human ships tried to respond. Small patrol vessels launched from hidden docks. Civilian transports broke orbit, overloaded with passengers. Mining ships, never meant for combat, moved to intercept, desperate to buy time. They didn't last. The Dominion ships did not slow. They did not adjust. They simply continued. Precise. Efficient. Absolute. Every ship that approached them was destroyed. Every defense that activated was neutralized. There was no battle. There was only execution. 2 hours. That was how long it took. 2 hours for Horizon to become something else. A burning scar. A memory. When the Dominion fleet finally powered down its weapons, there was nothing left to fight. Only debris. Only fire. Only silence. On the flagship, the commander observed the aftermath. Cold. Detached. This is what defiance becomes, he said. The entire operation had gone exactly as expected. Minimal resistance. Complete destruction. Message delivered. Transmit the record, he ordered. Within minutes, the footage spread. Across trade routes. Across diplomatic channels. Across the entire galactic assembly. Every species received it. Every species watched. And every species understood. This was not unusual. This was not shocking. This was how things worked. A young civilization had refused its place. And now, it had been corrected. Some felt pity. Quiet, distant pity. The lowering captain who had first met the humans watched the recording in silence. His crew stood behind him, equally still. They didn't listen, one of them said softly. The captain didn't respond immediately. His eyes remained fixed on the burning remains of Horizon. No, he said eventually. They didn't. Another voice spoke. They should have complied. The captain nodded. Yes. But something in his expression didn't match his words. Because he remembered. The way the human had smiled. The way she had said it. We've heard that before. He didn't understand it then. He still didn't. But now, it bothered him more. Far more. Elsewhere in the galaxy, the reaction was the same. Acceptance. Agreement. Resignation. The strong had acted. The weak had paid the price. Order maintained. Nothing unusual. Nothing worth changing. And that was the most important part. Because no one intervened. No fleets moved. No alliances formed. No warnings were sent. Humanity had stood alone. And humanity had fallen. That was the conclusion. That was the assumption. That was the mistake. Because while the galaxy watched Horizon burn, Earth was watching too. The footage arrived within minutes. Then seconds. Then everywhere. Every screen. Every network. Every device. People stopped. In cities. In homes. In offices. They watched. At first, there was confusion. Then disbelief. Then, silence. A deep, heavy silence that spread across the entire planet. 3 million people. Gone. Just like that. No war declaration. No negotiation. No second chance. Just a message. And a demonstration. The reactions came quickly. Grief. Anger. Fear. But beneath all of it, something else. Something colder. Emergency sessions were called. Leaders gathered. Military commands activated. But unlike Horizon, there was no panic. No chaos. Because this time, humanity had context. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was the galaxy. And now they understood its rules. Perfectly. In a secure facility deep beneath Earth's surface, a meeting took place. Not public. Not recorded. Not even officially acknowledged. Military leaders. Scientists. Engineers. People who did not deal in speeches. People who dealt in outcomes. The room was quiet. No one spoke at first. The footage played again. Horizon burning. Ships failing. People dying. Over and over. Until someone finally broke the silence. They won't stop. No one argued. They won't negotiate. No one disagreed. They expect us to surrender. A pause. Then, they expect us to be afraid. That got a reaction. Subtle, but real. Because fear was there. Of course it was. Anyone who said otherwise was lying. But fear, for humans, had always done two things. It made them freeze. Or, it made them dangerous. What are our options? Someone asked. The answer came quickly. None that keep us alive, as we are. Silence again. Then a different voice. What if we change that? Eyes turned. Not in hope. Not yet. But in attention. We are behind, the voice continued. In every measurable way. Their ships. Their weapons. Their scale. A nod. That doesn't change. Another pause. Unless we make it change. Now, the room shifted. Slightly. Enough. They've shown us the rules, the voice said. Power decides everything. A slow breath. Then we need more power. How? That was the question. The only question. And for a moment, no one answered. Because the answer wasn't simple. It wasn't safe. It wasn't even reasonable. But eventually, someone spoke. Quietly. Carefully. There are theories. All eyes turned again. Theoretical physics. Energy manipulation. Experimental materials. Concepts we abandoned because they were too unstable, too dangerous. A pause. They might work. The room didn't react immediately. Because everyone understood what that meant. Not progress. Not development. But something else. Something desperate. What would it cost? Someone asked. The answer came without hesitation. Everything. Silence fell one last time. Heavy. Final. Because this was the moment. The one that would decide what humanity became. Not just whether they survived. But how. And after a long, quiet pause, a single voice spoke. Do it. No vote. No debate. Just a decision. Simple. Absolute. The meeting ended. Orders were issued. Projects activated. Across Earth, and beyond it, facilities that had never been used began to awaken. Doors sealed. Systems powered on. Research that had been buried was brought into the light. Not for discovery. Not for curiosity. But for one purpose. Survival. And far above, beyond the atmosphere, beyond the reach of those who thought the story was already over. The stars remained silent. Watching. Waiting. Because what was coming next was not what the galaxy expected. Not even close. The Dominion did not stop at Horizon. They never did. One act of destruction was never the end. It was the beginning of correction. A message had been sent. Now it had to be enforced. The second fleet arrived 3 days later. Not 5 ships this time. 15. They entered human space without resistance. No warnings. No hesitation. Their targets were already chosen. Outlying colonies first. Mining worlds. Research stations. Anything distant. Anything vulnerable. Anything that could be erased quickly. And humanity responded. Not effectively, but immediately. Every available ship was mobilized. Patrol vessels. Cargo ships retrofitted with weapons. Exploration craft stripped down and armed with whatever they could carry. It wasn't enough. It was never going to be enough. But they didn't stay still. The first engagement happened near a colony called Kepri. A small world. Harsh atmosphere. Barely 1 million people. It should have been abandoned the moment the Dominion fleet appeared. It wasn't. Human ships formed a defensive line in orbit. Dozens of them. Tiny compared to what approached. Fragile. Unprepared. But present. On the Dominion flagship, the commander observed the formation. They still resist, one of his officers noted. Yes, he replied calmly. They do. There was no anger in his voice. No frustration. Just mild curiosity. Because this was inefficient. Illogical. Predictable. And yet, persistent. Destroy them. The order was given. The battle lasted less than 10 minutes. Human ships charged. They didn't hold formation. They didn't follow standard tactics. They moved fast. Unpredictable. Aggressive. They got closer than they should have. Closer than any rational species would allow. Some even managed to land hits. Minor ones. Insignificant. But real. And then, they were gone. One by one. Fire. Debris. Silence. The Dominion ships didn't slow. They continued forward. And Kepri followed horizon. Burning. Falling. Ending. The pattern repeated. Again and again. Another colony. Another resistance. Another loss. Humanity fought every time. Even when they knew the outcome. Even when surrender would have saved lives. They still fought. They still came. Small ships against giants. Hope against certainty. And each time, they lost. The Dominion recorded it all. Every battle. Every failure. And they shared it. Across the galaxy. This is what defiance becomes. The message spread. And the galaxy watched. Some turned away. Some observed with detached interest. Some felt something close to sympathy. But no one acted. Because this was how things worked. This was the system. And no one broke the system. Not anymore. Back on Earth, the reports kept coming. Colony lost. Fleet destroyed. Casualties rising. Millions. Then tens of millions. Names turned into numbers. Numbers turned into statistics. And still, the fighting continued. In command centers, strategies were rewritten daily. New tactics. New formations. New ideas. None of them worked. Because the gap was too large. Too absolute. They're not trying to win, one analyst said during a briefing. Silence followed. Because that sounded wrong. We can't win, someone replied. That's not what I mean. All eyes turned. They're not trying to win battles, the analyst clarified. They're trying to slow them down. A pause. Delay. That changed the room. Subtly. But enough. For what? Someone asked. No answer came. Not out loud. But everyone had the same thought. Time. They were buying time. The question was, for what? The Dominion noticed it too. Of course they did. Patterns were easy to identify. They continued to engage despite guaranteed defeat, an officer reported. They are delaying. The commander considered that. For what purpose? Unknown. That answer was less satisfying. Because while humans were weak, they were no longer irrelevant. Not because of their strength, but because of their behavior. They didn't adapt like others. They didn't surrender when expected. They didn't stop. Even when it made no sense. They are wasting resources, another officer added. Yes, the commander said slowly. But not randomly. That was the difference. Every loss had a pattern. Every battle had a purpose. Even if it wasn't immediately visible. Continue the campaign, he ordered. They will break. Because they always did. Because they had to. That was the rule. That was the law of the galaxy. And no species, no matter how stubborn, could defy it forever. Months passed. 6. Long enough for the galaxy to lose interest. Long enough for the outcome to feel inevitable. Human space was shrinking. Colony after colony fell. Fleet after fleet was destroyed. The numbers became overwhelming. Losses beyond counting. And still, no surrender. No tribute. No message of submission. Only resistance. Pointless. Costly. Relentless. Until one day, it stopped. Completely. No more ships. No more signals. No more resistance. Human space went silent. At first, the Dominion assumed victory. They are finished, one officer said. They have exhausted their resources. The commander watched the empty readings. No transmissions. No movement. No activity. Entire systems. Quiet. Too quiet. They have surrendered. Another asked. No. The commander's voice was low. Certain. This is not surrender. Because surrender came with signals. With pleas. With terms. This was something else. Across the galaxy, others noticed it too. The sudden silence. The absence of noise. Of movement. Of humanity itself. The lowering captain received the reports. Human space. Dark. No trade. No communication. No life detected. They're gone, one of his crew said. Destroyed. The captain didn't answer. Because something about it felt wrong. Deeply wrong. They didn't run, he said quietly. They didn't surrender. He looked at the empty star map. They don't just disappear. Back in Dominion space, the commander made a decision. Advance to their home system, he ordered. If they remain, we will end this. If they were gone, then it would be confirmed. Either way, the story would be finished. And far away, in the silence of a blue planet that no longer spoke, nothing moved. No signals escaped. No ships departed. No voices answered. To the galaxy, humanity was gone. Broken. Erased. Another lesson. Another warning. Another species that had learned too late. But beneath the surface. Beneath oceans, beneath mountains, beneath layers of reinforced steel and hidden cities. Something was happening. Something the galaxy could not see. Something the Dominion could not detect. Something that had been building. Since the moment horizon burned. The Dominion fleet arrived at Earth without resistance. No ships moved to intercept them. No signals challenged their approach. No defenses activated. Just silence. A blue world turned slowly beneath them. Oceans untouched. Clouds drifting. Continents still alive with green and gold. It looked peaceful. Too peaceful. On the flagship, the commander stood at the observation deck, watching the planet below. This is their origin world, an officer reported. Population, approximately 8 billion prior to campaign. Prior to. The word lingered. Scans? The commander asked. Minimal activity. Surface infrastructure remains, but there are no active transmissions. No orbital traffic. No visible military presence. A pause. They are hiding. Unknown. The commander studied the planet. Something about it felt wrong. Not because of what he saw, but because of what he didn't. No panic signals. No desperate broadcasts. No attempts to negotiate. Nothing. After everything that had happened. Nothing. Open a channel, he ordered. The transmission spread across every frequency. Humanity. His voice was calm. Measured. You have resisted. You have failed. The words echoed through empty networks. We will give you one opportunity. A pause. Surrender. Disarm. Submit to Dominion authority. Silence answered him. No reply. No acknowledgement. The commander's eyes narrowed slightly. You have 1 hour. The timer began. On the surface of Earth, nothing changed. Cities stood. Lights flickered in some regions, dim and inconsistent. But no organized response came. No unified signal. No voice. The hour passed. Then 2. Then 3. On the bridge, tension began to build. Subtle at first. Then noticeable. "They are not responding," the communications officer said. "Confirmed. Repeat the transmission." It has been repeated 12 times. The commander remained still. Watching. Waiting. Because this was not correct. Even broken species begged. Even defeated civilizations tried to negotiate. But this was absence. "Perhaps they are incapable of response," one officer suggested. "After the bombardments, their infrastructure may be." "No," the commander said. "Quiet. Certain. They are capable." He didn't know how he knew. But he did. They are choosing not to respond. That realization settled over the bridge. Heavy. Uncomfortable. "Why?" another officer asked. No one answered. Because there was no logical reason. "Unless they are preparing something," someone said. The words hung in the air. The commander considered it. A final stand. A hidden defense. It didn't matter. Not really. "Begin bombardment," he ordered. The fleet moved into position. Weapons charged. Targeting systems locked onto major population centers. Cities. Infrastructure. Anything that mattered. The first volley fired. Beams of energy struck the surface. Explosions bloomed across continents. Fire spread. Shockwaves rolled outward, tearing through everything in their path. Millions died in seconds. The Dominion continued. Relentless. Systematic. 3 days. That was how long it lasted. 3 days of continuous bombardment. Cities turned to craters. Forests to ash. Oceans scarred by energy strikes. When it ended, Earth was still there. But it was not the same. Large portions of its surface burned. Smoke filled the atmosphere. Entire regions were gone. The death toll was beyond calculation. On the flagship, the commander observed the aftermath. "It is done," an officer said. "Their civilization has been neutralized." The commander did not respond immediately. He continued to watch the planet. Still silent. Still wrong. Scan for survivors. Minimal readings. Scattered life signs. No organized activity. Another pause. "They are finished," the officer repeated. This time. The commander nodded. Yes. The order was given. Transmit the conclusion. Across the galaxy, the message spread. Humanity had been eliminated. Their colonies destroyed. Their fleets erased. Their homeworld reduced. The threat ended. And the galaxy accepted it. Because that was how these stories ended. A young species rises. It refuses to adapt. It is corrected. It disappears. Order restored. Nothing unusual. Nothing unexpected. Nothing to fear. The lowering captain received the report. He read it once. Then again. Then he closed his eyes. "It shouldn't feel like this," one of his crew said. "What?" the captain asked quietly. "Wrong." The captain didn't answer. Because he felt it too. Something about the way it ended didn't fit. "They fought too long," he said slowly. "They resisted too hard." He looked at the final image of Earth. Burning. Silent. They didn't just give up. Days passed. Then more. The Dominion fleet remained in orbit. Standard procedure. Observation. Confirmation. Ensuring no remnants remained. Nothing happened. No signals. No movement. No life beyond scattered survivors. The silence continued. And yet, it didn't feel like victory. On the flagship, the commander stood alone, looking down at the ruined world. He had overseen countless campaigns, countless extinctions. This should have felt familiar. Routine. Instead, there was something else. A faint, persistent sensation. Uncertainty. He did not like it. Not at all. Prepare to withdraw, he ordered. There was nothing left here. Nothing worth staying for. The fleet began to reposition. Jump drives charging. Systems aligning. Everything proceeding as expected. And then, a signal appeared. Weak. Faint. Almost nothing. But not nothing. Source? The commander demanded. Unknown, it's coming from the planet. All movement on the bridge stopped. The signal strengthened. Not a message. Not words. Just activity. Coordinates began to light up across the surface. Multiple locations. Hundreds. Thousands. What is this? An officer whispered. The commander didn't answer. He was already watching. Already understanding. That something had been missed. Below them, deep beneath the broken surface of Earth, doors began to open. Massive structures, hidden beneath mountains. Vast chambers beneath oceans. Facilities buried so deep they had escaped every scan. For a year, while the galaxy believed humanity was dying, humanity had been building. Now, it was finished. The first structure split open. Then another. Then dozens. Then hundreds. From beneath the surface, they rose. Ships. Dark. Angular. Silent. Not like anything the Dominion had seen before. Not like anything that should exist. They moved with impossible precision. Impossible speed. More followed. And more. And more. Within minutes, orbit filled. Thousands of ships. No signals. No formations. Just presence. Overwhelming. Unexplainable. On the flagship, the commander felt it again. That unfamiliar sensation. Stronger now. Clearer. Not uncertainty. Not confusion. Something deeper. Something far more dangerous. For the first time in centuries, he felt fear. For a moment, no one moved. The Dominion fleet held position. Weapons charged. Shields active. Targeting systems searching for answers they could not find. Thousands of ships. Appearing from nowhere. No warning. No detection. No explanation. That is not possible, one officer said. No one corrected him. Because by every law they understood. It wasn't. The commander stepped forward slowly, eyes locked on the growing formation around Earth. How many? He asked. Counting, still counting. Numbers climbed. Hundreds. Then thousands. Still rising. They had no fleet, another officer whispered. They had nothing left. The commander didn't respond. Because he was remembering something. The silence. The delay. The resistance that made no sense. They were buying time, he said quietly. And now, he understood why. The human ships finished forming. Not in chaos. Not in disorder. But in perfect alignment. A vast, silent network stretching across orbit. No signals exchanged. No visible coordination. And yet, flawless. What are they doing? An officer asked. The commander's answer was immediate. Preparing. The first movement came without warning. No build-up. No announcement. Just motion. The human fleet surged forward. Fast. Faster than anything the Dominion had recorded before. Distances closed in seconds. Weapons locked. Open fire, the commander ordered. The Dominion ships responded instantly. Beams of energy tore through space. Powerful. Precise. Proven. They had ended civilizations with these weapons. They struck the leading human ships. And nothing happened. No explosions. No debris. Just light, fading. The human ships kept coming. Direct hits confirmed, the weapons officer said. No damage detected. Silence. Then. They're still advancing. The distance collapsed. And then. The humans fired. No sound. No flash. Just. A beam. White. Pure. It crossed the space between fleets in an instant. And touched a Dominion warship. For exactly 1 second. Nothing happened. Then the ship ceased. Not exploded. Not broken. Gone. One moment it existed. The next. It didn't. A gap appeared in the Dominion formation. Empty. Impossible. What was that? Someone whispered. No one answered. Because no one knew. More beams followed. Precise. Controlled. Each one selecting a target. Each one ending it. Dominion ships vanished. Not damaged. Not destroyed. Erased. The fleet returned fire. All weapons. All systems. Overwhelming force. The void filled with energy. Enough to tear apart entire planetary defenses. Enough to end anything. And still, the human ships advanced. Their shields absorbed impacts that should have obliterated them. Their hulls remained intact. Their formation unbroken. They should not be surviving this, a scientist said, voice shaking. The energy output alone. It doesn't matter, the commander snapped. Because logic had already failed. What mattered now was survival. Adjust targeting patterns. Focus fire. Break their formation. Orders spread. Dominion ships shifted. Adapting. Responding. But they were reacting. Not controlling. And that had never happened before. Another human volley. More ships disappeared. Gaps widened. The formation weakened. This is impossible, an officer said. The commander ignored him. Because he could see it. Clear now. Unavoidable. They were losing. Not slowly. Not evenly. But decisively. These are not the same ships, the communications officer said. They're different. Different wasn't enough to explain it. These weren't improvements. They were something else entirely. Something new. Something the Dominion had never faced. They changed the rules, the commander said. Quietly. Realizing it as he spoke. They didn't catch up. His gaze remained fixed on the advancing fleet. They rewrote the game. The battle accelerated. Minutes passed. Then more. Dominion losses climbed. 10 ships. 20. 30. Each one gone without resistance. Each one erased. The humans kept coming. No hesitation. No fear. No wasted movement. Just purpose. On one of the forward Dominion vessels, the crew prepared for impact. They had seen what was happening. They understood. There was no escape. One of them spoke. What are they? No one answered. Because the answer no longer mattered. The beam came. And they were gone. Back on the flagship, the commander watched his fleet collapse. For the first time. Control was gone. Completely. We must withdraw, an officer said. The words were heavy. Unthinkable. But true. The commander did not respond immediately. Because retreat meant something. It meant acknowledgement. It meant failure. It meant the end of certainty. But staying meant destruction. Total. Absolute. Another ship vanished. Then another. The numbers no longer mattered. The outcome was clear. And for the first time in his existence, the commander faced a reality he had never known. They could lose. Not someday. Not theoretically. Now. Here. Completely. He closed his eyes for a moment. Then opened them. Cold. Resolved. Signal retreat. The order spread. Across what remained of the Dominion fleet. Ships began to turn. Jump drives powering. Escape routes calculated. For the first time in thousands of years. They ran. But the humans did not stop. They accelerated. Intercepting. Blocking. Cutting off vectors. They moved faster than the Dominion could respond. Predicting movements before they happened. You cannot outrun them, the navigation officer said. The commander didn't need confirmation. He could see it. They were being hunted. One by one. Retreating ships were caught. Targeted. Erased. There was no escape. Only delay. Only inevitability. And in that moment, the truth became absolute. This was not a battle. This was not a war. This was something else. Something far worse. Because the humans were not just winning. They were answering. The retreat lasted 3 minutes. That was all. 3 minutes of controlled panic. 3 minutes of calculated escape. 3 minutes before it became clear. There was nowhere to go. Dominion ships broke formation, each attempting its own jump vector. Some angled away from Earth. Others tried to push through the thinning gaps in human lines. None made it. Human ships moved faster. Not reacting, anticipating. Every escape route closed before it could be used. Every jump drive that began to charge was struck before it could activate. Precision. Absolute. They're predicting us, the navigation officer said. No, the commander replied, watching another ship vanish from his display. They already know. That was the difference. This wasn't a response. It was a calculation that had been completed long before the battle began. One by one, the Dominion vessels fell. Some tried to fight. Others tried to run. It didn't matter. The result was the same. Erasure. Within minutes, what had once been a fleet capable of ending civilizations was reduced to fragments of light and empty space. 12 ships remained. 12. Surrounded. Outmatched. Finished. On the flagship, silence filled the bridge. No one spoke. No one moved. Because there was nothing left to do. The commander stared at the tactical display. For the first time in his life, he had no path forward. This is the end, one of his officers said quietly. The commander didn't respond. Because endings were something he had always delivered. Never received. An incoming signal appeared. Not forced. Not intrusive. Directed. Intentional. Source, he asked. Human vessel. The commander hesitated for a fraction of a second. Then, open it. The screen flickered. A human appeared. Not armored. Not elevated. Just standing. Calm. Controlled. Her uniform was simple, marked only by a single insignia. Her expression was unreadable. This is Admiral Arya Chen of the Human Defense Command, she said. Her voice was steady. Cold. You are surrounded. The statement was unnecessary. But it was said anyway. Power down your weapons. Disable your drives. Prepare to be boarded. A pause. Any resistance will result in your immediate termination. The commander watched her. Studied her. There was no anger in her face. No visible hatred. And that made it worse. You have destroyed our fleets, he said slowly. Yes. You have reversed the balance of power. Yes. Another pause. What do you intend to do next? For the first time, something shifted in her expression. Not much. But enough. What we should have done from the beginning, she said. And what is that? Her eyes didn't leave his. Finish it. Silence. Heavy. Final. On the bridge, the Dominion officers waited. For an order. For anything. The commander remained still. He had commanded wars that lasted centuries. He had crushed rebellions before they began. He had never faced this. A choice where neither option preserved what he was. Fight. And die. Surrender. And lose everything. One of his officers spoke quietly. If we surrender, we may survive. Another voice followed. If we resist, we will be erased. The commander closed his eyes for a moment. Just one. Then opened them. Looking not at his officers, but at the human on the screen. You speak of finishing it, he said. Yes. Does that include us? Her answer came without delay. That depends. On what? A pause. And this time, there was something in her voice. Not anger. Not rage. Something deeper. Something colder. On whether you understand what you've done. The commander considered that. For the first time. Not as a ruler. Not as a conqueror. But as something else. Someone who had been on the other side. You believe this is justice, he said. I believe this is consequence. The distinction mattered. More than anything. Behind her calm expression. There was something else. Not visible. But present. Loss. Billions of lives reduced to numbers. Cities turned to ash. A world burned. And survived. Barely. You lost people, the commander said. Her eyes didn't change. 62 million confirmed, she replied. No hesitation. No emotion. Just a number. But numbers like that were never just numbers. And now you want retribution? No. That answer was immediate. Sharp. Clear. I wanted retribution 6 months ago. A pause. Now I want something else. The commander leaned forward slightly. What? Her gaze hardened. An end. Silence. Because that word carried weight. Not just for him, but for everything. Power down your ships, she said. Or we will do it for you. The choice was no longer complex. It was simple. And absolute. The commander looked around his bridge. His officers. His soldiers. Beings who had followed him without question. Who had believed, as he had, that they were unchallengeable, unbreakable, superior. And now, they stood at the edge of something none of them had prepared for. Reality. He turned back to the screen. To the human. To the species they had dismissed. Underestimated. Provoked. You have changed the galaxy, he said quietly. No, she replied. You did. A beat. You just didn't realize it. That landed. He exhaled slowly. Then gave the order. Power down all systems. Around him, the bridge came alive. Not with battle. But with surrender. Weapons offline. Shields dropping. Engines shutting down. One by one. The last Dominion ships went dark. On the tactical display, the human fleet did not move. They did not fire. They simply waited. Watching. Confirming. Accepting. The commander straightened. For the first time in centuries. Not as a ruler. Not as a conqueror. But as something else. A defeated man. We surrender. The words left his mouth quietly. But they echoed. Across the bridge. Across the fleet. Across the galaxy. Because something like this had never happened before. Not to them. Not to the Dominion. And far beyond the battlefield. Across 1,000 worlds. The message spread. The unstoppable had been stopped. The unbreakable had broken. And the species that had done it was the one they had all ignored. Feared too late. Understood too late. Humanity. The message spread faster than light. Not through technology. Through shock. Across the galactic assembly, signals flooded every channel. Confirmations. Reconstructions. Fragments of battle recordings stitched together into something no one had ever expected to see. Dominion warships, gone. Their fleet, destroyed. Their commander, captured. The impossible had happened. On 1,000 worlds, beings stopped what they were doing. Traders paused mid-transaction. Leaders abandoned negotiations. Entire systems rerouted communications to a single source. Earth. The lowering captain stood in silence as the data scrolled across his display. Verified. Cross-checked. Repeated. They won, one of his crew whispered. The captain didn't answer. Because the word didn't feel right. One implied a contest. This had not been a contest. This had been something else. They didn't just win, he said slowly. They changed everything. In the assembly chamber, chaos replaced order. Representatives spoke over one another. Arguments broke out instantly. This cannot be real. It is confirmed by multiple sources. The Dominion has never. Not once. Then how? No one had an answer. Because there was no precedent. For millions of years, the system had been stable. Brutal. Unfair. But stable. Strong ruled. Weak served. And now, that foundation was gone. What do the humans want? One representative demanded. Silence followed. Because that question mattered more than anything. Not how they won. Not what they used. But what came next. Because power like that did not remain unused. Back in Dominion space, the impact was immediate. Panic. Not public. Not visible. But real. Fleets were recalled. Defenses activated. Borders sealed. For the first time in their history, they were preparing to defend. Not expand. Not conquer. Defend. On their homeworld, the High Council gathered in emergency session. Voices rose. Accusations flew. How did this happen? You assured us they were insignificant. They were. They are not now. The distinction was clear. Painfully clear. What do they want? One counselor asked. Again. No answer. Because no one knew. And that uncertainty was worse than any known threat. Far from the chaos, in orbit above Earth, the human fleet remained. Thousands of ships. Still. Silent. Watching. The captured Dominion vessels had been secured. Their commander transferred. Their systems disabled. No executions. No immediate retaliation. Just control. Absolute control. On the command ship, Admiral Chen stood before a display of the galaxy. Highlighted systems. Movement patterns. Incoming transmissions from dozens of species. They're asking for our intentions, her officer said. Of course they are. Some are offering alliances. A pause. Others are offering tribute. That almost earned a reaction. Almost. And the rest? She asked. They're waiting. Watching. Calculating. Just like they always had. Chen's gaze remained fixed on the display. On the systems that had watched Horizon burn. On the ones that had said nothing. Done nothing. They had their chance, she said quietly. Her officer didn't respond. Because there was nothing to say. They all knew it. Every human in that room knew it. When the Dominion attacked. No one came. No one helped. No one intervened. Now. Everything was different. Admiral, the communications officer said carefully, what are our orders? That was the question. The same one echoing across the galaxy. What would humanity do? Now that they could do anything. Chen didn't answer immediately. She thought of Horizon. Of the first strike. Of the silence that followed. She thought of Earth. Burning. Breaking. Surviving. She thought of the year beneath the surface. The decisions made. The lines crossed. The things they had become. And then. She made her decision. Set course, she said. For where? Her eyes didn't leave the display. For them. The officer hesitated. Admiral, that would take us directly into Dominion core space. Yes. They still have fleets. Defensive networks. Shipyards. I know. Silence. Heavy. Then. Do it. The order spread. Across the entire human fleet. Engines powered. Formations shifted. Coordinates locked. 3,000 ships turned. Not away from the conflict. But deeper into it. They're moving, the lowering captain said as new data arrived. Where? He stared at the projected trajectory. Then felt something cold settle in his chest. Toward the Dominion. Around him, his crew fell silent. Because that meant only one thing. This isn't over, someone whispered. No, the captain said quietly. It's just beginning. Across the galaxy, realization spread. Not slowly. Not gradually. But all at once. Humanity wasn't stopping. They weren't consolidating power. They weren't negotiating. They weren't retreating. They were advancing. And this time, they were not the weak species at the edge of space. They were something else. Something new. Something the galaxy had never seen before. Because the humans weren't just responding anymore. They were deciding. And that made them the most dangerous force in existence. Back on the command ship, Chen stood alone for a moment. Watching the stars ahead. Somewhere out there, the species that had started all of this still existed. Still believed. Still thought they could survive what they had unleashed. She closed her eyes briefly. Just one moment. then opened them again. Cold. Resolved. We gave them a chance, she said softly. No one heard her. But the words mattered. Because they were true. They had been given a choice. They had made it. And now. So would humanity. The fleet jumped. And the galaxy held its breath. The Dominion homeworld had never known fear. For 500,000 years, it had stood at the center of power. Untouchable. Unchallenged. Unquestioned. Now, it waited. Every defense system was active. Orbital platforms aligned in layered formations. Planetary shields hummed with energy strong enough to withstand fleet-level assaults. Hundreds of warships formed a defensive wall around the system. Everything the Dominion had built, everything it had relied on, was here. And still, it wasn't enough. They're coming, the tactical officer said. No one needed confirmation. The human fleet appeared at the edge of the system like a fracture in reality. 3,000 ships. Silent. Perfectly aligned. No signals. No warnings. Just presence. They're not attacking, another officer noted. Not yet. They waited. Minutes passed. Then, a transmission. It appeared across every Dominion channel simultaneously. Not forced. Not aggressive. Clear. Direct. Admiral Chen. Her image filled the chamber. Her expression unchanged. Her voice steady. This is your final opportunity. The words settled heavily. Disarm your fleets. Shut down your weapons. Surrender your command structure. A pause. You will face judgment. Silence filled the chamber. On the council floor, voices rose immediately. We cannot accept this. This is humiliation. This is extinction. But at the center of it, one figure remained still. Saravel. The newly appointed leader. Younger than most. But not blind. She had seen the reports. She had watched the battle. She understood something the others refused to accept. This is not a negotiation, she said quietly. The chamber fell silent. It is an outcome. All eyes turned to her. If we refuse, she continued, we will be destroyed. A counselor slammed a fist against the table. We are the Dominion. No, she said. Not anymore. That truth was harder to accept than any defeat. They will not stop, she added. They cannot. Because something fundamental had changed. Not just in power, but in humanity itself. They are not fighting for victory, Saravel said. They are fighting for resolution. The difference mattered. More than anything. Another counselor spoke. Then we fight. We die with honor. Saravel turned to him. What honor? She asked. The question cut deeper than any weapon. What honor is there in what we did? Silence. Because there was no answer. We created this, she said. We chose this. And now, they had to face it. The transmission from Chen remained open. Waiting. Not impatient. Not uncertain. Just, waiting. Saravel stepped forward. Open a direct channel. The room hesitated. Then obeyed. Her image appeared before the human fleet. Before Chen. Before the force that had undone everything. We accept your terms, Saravel said. No hesitation. No pride. Just truth. We will surrender. A ripple of shock moved through the Dominion command. But it was too late for doubt. Too late for pride. Too late for anything but survival. Chen watched her. For a long moment. Then. Too late. The words fell quietly. But they hit like a weapon. Saravel's breath caught. We accepted. You delayed. A pause. You calculated. Another. You chose. Chen's gaze hardened. So did we. Silence. Heavy. Final. Please, Saravel said. Not as a ruler. Not as a leader. But as something else. Spare our people. Chen didn't answer immediately. Because this was the moment. The one that defined everything. What humanity had become. What it would be. What it would choose. She thought of Earth. Of the cities that burned. Of the children who never had a chance. Of the silence that followed. She thought of Horizon. Of the first strike. Of the message sent. And then she spoke. Stand down your fleets. Saravel didn't hesitate. Do it. Orders spread instantly. Dominion ships powered down. Weapons offline. Shields lowering. Across the system, the greatest military force the galaxy had ever known went silent. The human fleet moved. Not with aggression. Not with chaos. With precision. Ships repositioned. Weapons aligned. Not to destroy, but to control. Boarding vessels deployed. Ground forces prepared. Within hours, the Dominion command structure was dismantled. Leaders detained. Weapons systems disabled. Military networks shut down. No mass destruction. No genocide. Just removal. Absolute. Controlled. Final. The Dominion did not fall in fire. It fell in silence. And that changed everything. Across the galaxy, the news spread. The unstoppable had not only been defeated, it had been spared. And that was more terrifying than destruction. Because it meant something new had entered the equation. Not just power, but choice. Days later, the broadcast began. Every system. Every world. Every species. Admiral Chen stood before the remains of the Dominion Council chamber. Her voice carried across the stars. We did not start this war. Silence followed. But we finished it. A pause. You have seen what we can do. No denial. No humility. Just truth. You have seen what happens when we are pushed. Another pause. And now, you will see what we choose. The galaxy listened. Because this was the future speaking. Humanity will not rule you. A ripple of confusion. We will not demand tribute. We will not enforce submission. More confusion. We will not become what they were. A longer silence. Because no one expected that. But then, her voice hardened. But understand this. The words slowed. Deliberate. Clear. We will not forget. Images flashed. Horizon. Earth. The war. We will not forgive what was done lightly. Another pause. And if it happens again. Her eyes locked forward. Cold. Unyielding. We will end it. The broadcast ended. And for the first time in millions of years, the galaxy changed. Not gradually. Not slowly. Immediately. The old system. Gone. The rule of strength over weakness. Broken. Something new had taken its place. Uncertain. Unstable. But different. On Earth, the scars remained. Cities rebuilt. Populations recovering. But something had shifted. Not just in the galaxy, but in humanity. They had seen what they could become. They had walked that line. And they had stepped back. Barely. Admiral Chen stood alone, overlooking a restored skyline. Lights stretched across the horizon. Life continued. But she knew the truth. The cost. The weight. What have we become? She whispered. No one answered. Because the answer was still being written. Behind her, footsteps approached. Something new, a voice said. She turned. Sarah Park. The scientist who had helped make it all possible. Something dangerous, Chen replied. Sarah nodded. Yes. A pause. But also something necessary. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the world they had saved. At a cost no one would ever fully understand. Do you think it was worth it? Chen asked. Sarah didn't answer immediately. Then, we're still here, she said. And so is everyone else. A small breath. Maybe that's enough. Chen looked back at the city. At the people. At the future. Uncertain. Fragile. But alive. Far beyond Earth, in the depths of space. New species watched. Hidden. Observing. Learning. Some chose to remain silent. To stay hidden. Because humanity was too dangerous. Others saw something else. A possibility. A change. A new path. And at the center of it all, a small blue planet. Scarred. Tested. Unbroken. Earth. A world that had been pushed to the edge. And had pushed back. Harder. Faster. Stronger. But in the end, had chosen something else. Because power alone did not define them. Choice did. And the galaxy would remember that. Forever.